What's it like in your brain when you're almost done? Hey, it's Mikli, and you're listening to Head Time Stories, a podcast exploring what's it like in your brain. This week, while working on this podcast, I posted a silly little post on Threads. I'm going to read it to you, but I need you to imagine the red angry face emoji every time I pause. All right, here. I'm working on a thing and I want to share more about the thing, but I know if I share about the thing, my brain will think I'm done with the thing and then proceed to abandon the thing. I was so GIGIL because I just recorded episode 1, I just created the art, I just signed up for a host, I'd uploaded the episode, I submitted it to all of the, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of that. I'm scheduling the release of episode 1 on my birthday, but I couldn't tell anyone because I know my silly little brain. The pattern is too pattern for me to ignore it. If I wanted to make it here to episode 2, I needed to shut the fuck up. Here's what it's like in my brain. One of the first images I thought of was a library. So imagine a library, floor-to-ceiling shelves, Beauty and the Beast type where you need a ladder to get up to all of the books. It's full. It's a library that's super, super full. You grab one book and it's like, oh, that's the for-release piano piece. Grab another book. That's a workshop. Grab another book. Oh, that's another workshop. Grab another book and oh, there's a curriculum. You pick one out, you leaf through the book and you're like, this is a good book. The illustrations are great. The words are words and you're getting really into it. And then it stops mid-sentence. 80% of the way through, the book ends. Not even a back cover. It was a fully formed, fully fleshed out book. And then it's like the author just went, meh. I know this about my brain. She loves a challenge. She loves a puzzle. That's the joy for her. If something is unresolved, she can't rest till that open loop is closed. There is a tension in my brain when I'm working on something, a gigil that keeps me interested and coming back. I will be making butt sweat marks on the piano seat because I haven't gotten up in 5 hours. I was busy committing the piece to muscle memory. I also know this about my brain. She loves to read ahead. She loves a spoiler. But the moment she knows the ending, she's bored. There's no more challenge. There's no more puzzle. There's no more tension. No more intrigue. The last half page of For Elise looks similar enough to the other passages I'd already learned. Nothing new here. I'm good. And then she just checks out. So, going back to the library, the author of those books in the library, her process was she would write to figure out what came next in the story. She didn't know how her book was going to end, and so she kept writing to see what that ending was going to be. Except once she finally figured it out, once she finally thought of the ending in her mind, she was like, well, now I know what the ending looks like. I don't need to figure it out anymore, so I don't need to write anymore. And then she's gone. Ooh, another thing you can also imagine is, those lotto scratch cards, like, it's got these circles covered in a silver something. Then you scratch it out with a coin to see if you want a prize. My brain is one of those cards. And it's one of those like mega cards that have 50 circles. And then all of these circles are just partially scratched. Like a little chip taken out of each. I didn't bother fully scratching each panel because I already knew what was underneath. Next. So how does the whole not telling people fit into this? The business advice drilled into me by the internet is when you're working on something, tell people about it. Share before you're ready so that you're accountable and you'll finish it. You're not going to want to let them down, are you? And it makes sense. I am, after all, a people pleaser. But it turns out when I tell people about it and then they go, oh wow, that's really cool. That's the equivalent of the author skipping to the end of the book. She knows the ending now. And so all the tension that I had to keep chugging away so that I could one day reach the ending, so that I could one day launch it, is gone. It's me scratching off the scratch card and seeing what's under it. I got the dopamine hit. I'm done. And now I'm not interested. Or at least my brain isn't interested. Because, look, I still want to do that workshop. I still want to launch that mentorship program. But The brain who was so game to stay up until 4 a.m. Just one more module who was so willing to work even when it was hard. I can't get her off the metaphorical couch anymore. She's bored. And apparently, that's the worst thing for her to be. And what about the people-pleasing part of my brain? Isn't she afraid of letting people down? Yes, in general. But she's also learned that most people are forgetful. And if you just stop talking about something and never launch the thing you were mentioning, like 98% of people will not remember actually. And the other 2% either won't say anything or they're your friends and they'll say something friendlily. Either way, she found a loophole around that people-pleasing and I am not pleased. This doesn't feel like growth. So my usual MO with a new idea would be have an idea, get excited about the idea, tell everyone about the idea, get extra excited about the idea, then lose interest in the idea, beat myself up because why can't I take this idea over the finish line? Why can't I just do it? Until I made that connection. Until I realized I was inadvertently making myself disinterested in the thing that I was so interested in. And then I had the idea for this podcast. Now, I know it's only episode 2, but this podcast is special to me because she's one of the first things in years I've created that's just for fun. I've been in burnout territory lately from having to ask my creativity to feed me, and it's just been so mental health to finally be creating for the sake of creating instead of creating for the sake of converting. She's so precious. I want to keep her around for as long as I can, and so I'm keeping quiet. No dopamine until she's launchable. It's still a work in progress, figuring out how to work with this brain instead of against it. How do you keep the excitement of a project alive long enough to finish it? Especially when that last 20% is usually the slog of the boring, tedious admin things. I have no concrete answers, but here are some things that I've been trying. For this podcast specifically, I closed my eyes and ears to the best practices, quote unquote, and I'm following the GIGIL, the tension, the So for example, if the urge to write is strong, I write. If I'm feeling excited about what I've written and I want to record, I record. And then while I'm recording, maybe I'll ad-lib a little something. And then my writing brain goes, oh yeah, that's good. Let's add that to the next part. And then so I go back and forth, following the sparks that keep me excited to keep going. And being careful not to follow the sparks that make me feel like I'm done. So in the middle of producing episodes, sometimes my brain just goes and wants to be on the socials. Now I know I shan't say words. So instead, what I did was go onto the headtimestories.pod Instagram account, where as of this moment, there is nobody following me except me and my husband because I made him. And I spoke to the void. If you visit the Instagram page and head over to the BTS highlight, you'll see me talking to myself in the middle of making this very episode. It kept me awake long enough to keep going, and that's a win. You remember the Threads post I referenced at the top of this episode? The one where I said, if I share about a thing, then my brain thinks I'm done with the thing? That got some pretty good responses, with some people sharing their strategies in there. Now, I haven't asked their permission, so I'm not sure if I can share them in this episode, but go check it out. I've linked it in the show notes. And look, all of this anyway is in service of enjoying the journey, so that's gotta be good, right? Alright, so that's what it's like in my brain when I'm trying to shimmy something over the finish line. A constant battle against the urge to share and the allure of that premature dopamine hit. But I'm working with what I've got, and now I know to stay off the metaphorical and literal socials to avoid spoilers. I gotta hold tight so that the satisfaction that I get isn't from the validation of semi-doing the thing, but from actually doing the thing. And sometimes it just takes a little creativity to get me there. Okay, now you. Is there something that you're working on right now that, well, no, I was going to say share all about it, but I guess not, huh? But in any case, yes, what's it like in your brain when you're almost done with something? Please tell me all about it. Use the hashtag HeadTimeStories or tag me on the socials at HeyMickley or at headtimestories.pod, and let's chat. That's it for this episode of Headtime Stories. I'm your host, Mickley, and what's it like in your brain? Story time again soon. Bye. Wait. Not to be mushy on Maine, but P.S. The response to that post made me so soft. Nobody knew about this podcast, but that post was essentially the premise of this podcast. What's it like in my/your/our brain? And the replies were things like felt, same, the most relatable things I've seen on here, or something along the lines of I've never made the connection before, or people sharing their experiences, all the stuff that they've also unfinished and never got over the finish line. Or like I mentioned earlier, people sharing their tricks and their strategies, or even saying that their brain does the opposite thing, like no, they really do have to share to induce that fear of failure. And that is the spirit of Head Time Stories exactly. I hope these episodes make you feel seen or connect the dots for you, or is that space for you to share your experiences and hacks and the way that you live with your brain to either say, oh my God, me too, I thought it was just me, or the opposite, like, oh, no, wait, my brain does this whole other thing. This is the place for that, and you are so welcome here. Okay, that's it for real. Story time again soon. Bye.